In this course, we're going to talk about building and using Podio web forms. So, some of the topics we're going to cover, we're going to talk about different use cases for web forms. Obviously, the big use for web forms is to get data from external sources into our Podio apps. There's a number of different use cases. This could be something like a contact us form on a website. Maybe it's an internal request to a Podio app that we need to submit via a web form. Maybe it's something like a survey or an event registration. So, again, there's a lot of different use cases for web forms, and we'll walk through what a couple of those look like. Obviously, we're going to show you how to go into an application and set up our first web form. Super easy to do. Lots of room for configuration and customization once we get started. We'll talk a little bit about how we can use related applications in our web form. So, being able to have a field in a web form that lets us look at a related application and select from a list of items. We'll talk about how we can leverage help text from our applications and get that information into our web form to help guide users through the form submission process. We'll talk about the couple of options we've got once the user submits the form, whether that be displaying just a message or redirecting them to another URL. And we'll talk just a little bit about some options for styling our web forms using things like custom CSS and HTML. And I'm going to start in our approvals demo workspace. So this workspace is just an approvals demo. It was built around the use case of expense requests. So you'll see here we've got an expense request application. We'll come back to this in a minute. And we've got our employees application. So the whole idea is that an employee could submit an expense report that would get either approved or routed for approval if over a certain dollar amount. But our focus here is on the web form itself. Now, what I want to do to start is I'm just going to create a new app just to show you how easy it is to get going with a basic out-of-the-box web form. I'm going to call this demo app. I'm just going to call it demo. I'm going to save this to as a table. And let's just say this is going to be a very simple web form. Let's just say name. I'll just throw in phone, email, and let's have a status, new, open, closed. So let's go ahead and save that. So now with any application inside of Podio, inside of my workspaces, I can create a web form from that application and its data. So in order to do that as a workspace admin, I just come over to the app settings here in the wrench and I click web form. Now, you'll see here I'm able to start building out my web form and making certain configurations. To start, web forms can be either a direct link that gets shared out. So this is really good for things like internal use cases. I've actually got a couple of those out on the activity page you'll see in a few minutes. These can be good for other internal resources. We have customers that use it for submitting time cards. So just being able to have that link is really handy. Podio web forms can also be embedded into other websites. So say, for example, this is a contact us form type or contact us type form. If I wanted to, this could be embedded somewhere in, for example, the Progress website. If I wanted to do that, I would need to make sure that I've got the domain for www.progress.com and progress.com added here to allow those domains. But again, that idea is very helpful for customers who may have a website. You may already have a contact us form that goes to an email. You could replace that form with this Podio web form code, and submitting that information would then come directly into your Podio application. So if you had something like this where a leads application, it's really easy to get some contact information into your Podio system and then start taking workflow actions once that form has been submitted. Now, let's look at some of the things we've got in terms of configuration options. So first thing I can do is I can choose what app fields I want to show. You can see here I've got all of them checked by default. But let's say, for example, I don't really want them to see the status. That's for me to know and track internally. And let's say there's really no reason for them to attach files. I can go ahead and just unclick those boxes, and those are now saved. Next, I can come give my form a title and description. So again, very easy. Let's call this request form. Please fill out the below information. Very easy to get going, just again with a title and description. Theme. This is our first step in changing the look and feel of our web form. So there's a number of different options here. You know, I won't click through all of them, but you can see some have a little bit older look. Some have a much different look. I'm going to go with Flatly. And then in a minute, I'll show you how we can leverage some custom CSS to really start to change more of the look and feel of our form. But for now, we'll stick with the out of the box. I have the ability to enable spam protection. So everybody's favorite, please check the pictures with all of the streetlights or all of the bikes. That can be enabled here to help with uh, spam. I can also change the button text. So since this is a request form, I can change this to submit my request. And my button's now updated. Now, what I can also do is I can also choose what I want to have happen after submission. So the out of the box, it's just got some text here. So I can make this whatever I want. Thank you for your request. Uh, Going back to the links, you can redirect this to a URL. Now, one thing that's important is if you've got this web form embedded in a website. So again, our example earlier was we wanted this to be, for example, embedded in the Progress website somewhere. The redirect URL would need to live on that same domain. Otherwise, it just won't work when you go to enable the web form in that site. So something to keep in mind as you do that. But again, I can choose either one of these. Another option that customers will sometimes go with is they'll have the redirect go to the actual link. So again, we've seen certain scenarios where maybe it's recording time cards or something like that. I need to just be able to submit an entry, turn around, and then submit a second and a third and a fourth. A really easy way to do that is just to take the actual web form link and make that our URL. So let's actually do that right now. Let's just go ahead and copy, just so you can see what that looks like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this. So I'll open this in a new tab, and we can see our web form. Now, what's really cool is once the link is out there, or once I've embedded this code in my website, any changes to the form here happen in near real time. So let's say I want to go turn on the spam protection. I turn that on. Cool. Save and share. If I come back and refresh the page, there we go. Now I can come in and tell the system I'm not a robot. If I want to turn that off, same thing. Uncheck, save. And it's no longer there. So again, being able to create a new web form from any application in Podio with the out-of-the-box experience, very, very easy to do. Now, let's go look at another example here in our workspace with our expense request form. So first, let's look at the application fields themselves. So if I open this up, first thing you'll see here is I've got a relationship field to my employees app. So I can see I've got my employees app here. And what you'll see when we look at the form is I'm able to select myself as an employee from a list of pre-existing employees. We've got our expense type, the value, the date of expenditure, any additional details. But then you'll see here, I've got another section for approvals. So typically these are going to be things that we don't want exposed in our web form. One thing I can also do is I can also provide some help text. So if I come over here to our Podio app and say, for anything not in this list, please make note in the expense details. I could choose other, but I'm going to go ahead and select done. So we'll now see that in our web form. We'll also see that help text. So let's go take a look at this because this web form has a much different look and feel. So you'll see here, I've got the ability to choose myself as the requesting employee. You'll see here now my new help text that I just added is live in my web form. I can choose the expense value, the date, provide any details. And you'll notice my button has a little bit different look and feel to it, as well as having the logo at the top. Now, there's some cool things that you can do with the Podio web forms when it comes to custom CSS and HTML. There's actually a link I will include in the Podio developer site that gives you some direction as to how to change some of these things. If you are familiar with CSS and HTML, this gets to be quite a bit easier. But for example, what I've done here, if we look at the title and description, you can see I've got some HTML, and what this is doing is it's actually adding the publicly hosted image to this logo into the entire title field. So this entire field with the logo, expense request form, and please submit the details of your expense below. This is a single block of HTML, which is then rendered here with the logo and the language I want. So it's very easy to do that. You can do that in the title, in the description. The other place I've done that is actually after submission. You'll see here I've got the link to the logo, and I've got some additional text here that I've formatted. So we'll see what that looks like here in a minute. Now, something else I did is I went in the theme, I mentioned earlier being able to add custom CSS. Now, if you recall in the other web form, our email field had something like the other or home or mobile box next to it, and then underneath it, it had add another. You can do things like remove that part of the interface. So it's just a clean looking block like this that captures that information. But again, since I'm choosing myself as an employee in this example to show you how this works with related items, I'm not having to put in my phone and email address. But again, that's another option that you've got with something like custom CSS. Actually, if I do go look at this, what you'll see in the form is I've got the ability to change the color of the button color, the text color. I can even make it change color when I hover over it. You can see here, field add another. Even though I don't have that field, it's still here. But again, I can leverage all kinds of custom CSS to really start to make a lot of changes to the way that this web form has or does appear. So let's go ahead and save this. Done. Now, to submit one and let's see it, let's come back out here to the activity page, because actually what I've got in our helpful links here is I've got a link to the form. And you'll see here, I'm able to select myself from the dropdown. I'm able to say this is for materials. Let's say this is 150. Let's say I'm going to spend this today. Need a new monitor, keyboard, and mouse. If I had any kind of attachment I wanted to provide, I can do that. I can submit my request. So again, a slightly different look and feel for the confirmation page. It's got the logo. Text is in bold. So again, I was able to modify that using some HTML. If we come back over and look, I can see now I've got my new request, and we can see everything that's happened with this. Really easy to create those web forms, post those either as external links or embed those to websites. But until next time,